This isn't a love story, it's a blood-soaked lesson in how monsters are made. From the outside, Elena looks like a fragile heiress trapped in a marriage. But beneath that image, this story is about power manufacturing innocence, then punishing it for being naive. Victor believes he is raising a submissive wife. In truth, he is watering a seed of vengeance with lies, hormones, and fear. And when Elena rises, she does not escape violence. She inherits its language. That is what makes this story terrifying.
Peep this. Outside her husband's office, Elena Moretti is basically a specter, her hand glued to a doorknob she can't bring herself to use. Through the crack, she hears her man, Victor, cool as a cucumber, literally scheduling her death. In her purse, a positive pregnancy test that was her miracle an hour ago is now just a tombstone. Because the sickest part is, they're laughing in there. Laughing about how easy it was to play her company, her body, her entire life. She was in a negotiation where she never even saw the terms. And the biggest gut punch, she loved him through every dance lie. If you want to see how a good woman gets forged into an absolute demon, you better stick around for this ride. Go on and smash that like button and sound off in the comments where you're tuning in from. So, it's a grim October night in Boston. Rain just dumping down, making the streets look like slick black death traps. Elena Moretti is melting into the townhouse shadows, soaked to the bone, her breathing all ragged, and it has nothing to do with the cold. Thing is, she shouldn't even be here. She's supposed to be in Cambridge, suffering through another dinner with her sister, Maria, who keeps asking about the dark circles under her eyes, the weight she's dropped, and the way her hands shake when she thinks no one's looking. But Elena forgot her meds. Those little white pills Victor puts on her nightstand every morning, the ones supposedly to keep her nerves from snapping. Dr. Hammond prescribed them 6 months ago, right after her world started tilting sideways. Victor had been the perfect concerned husband back then, making sure she took every single one. So she drove through the storm, back to their place, snuck in a side door, and dripped her way up the servants' stairs. The bottle was right where he always keeps it. It was on her way out she heard the voices spilling from Victor's study, a room that should have been dead silent. He told her he was working late, closing the Castellano deal. He literally kissed her forehead that morning, told her to relax, and reminded her about those pills. Yet that was 100% his voice. And he wasn't alone. Had to be Marco. Victor's head of security, the dude with a nasty scar cutting through one eye and knuckles that looked like they knew how to break things. Any sane woman would have bailed, would have popped her pills, gone back to Maria's, and memory holed this entire night. Instead, Elena crept closer. The study door was heavy oak, an antique from the 1890s. It was always locked up tight, but tonight it was cracked open, an inch of pure betrayal, just enough. Then Victor's voice cut through, sharp and final. The timing is critical. He always used that tone when he was cracking a tough problem. Elena used to find that confidence sexy. A day sooner and the inheritance doesn't trigger. A day later and the board starts asking questions. What about the sister? Marco's voice was a low rumble. Maria's been sniffing around, asking Elena if she's okay, if she needs anything. Maria is a non-issue. She has zero claim on Moretti shipping. Once Elena's gone, it all transfers to me, the grieving spouse. We've been over this. The room started to swim in Elena's vision. The pill bottle slipped from her hand, a silent drop she snagged just before it could rat her out. Her hands were shaking so bad she almost lost her grip again. And the pregnancy? A third voice, younger, full of doubt. What if they decide to check? There is no pregnancy. Victor said it like he was commenting the weather. Dr. Hammond has confirmed the HCG injections worked perfectly. Elena has been showing all the correct symptoms for 8 weeks. The morning sickness, the fatigue, the mood swings. By the time it occurs to anyone to ask, it will be a moot point. The ground fell out from under Elena's feet. 8 weeks. 8 weeks since she started feeling sick, and Victor was right there, sweetly holding her hair back. He had driven her to Dr. Hammond himself, waiting like a saint while they ran the tests. She had cried at the news, cried with this huge relief that it was finally happening, cried thinking she and Victor could finally have the family she wanted so badly. The kind her parents gave her before they were killed in the crash. Victor held her so tight that night, telling her their life was about to be perfect. The pills keep her compliant. That was Marco again. More than compliant. She's completely docile. Between the sedatives and the hormones, she's in a constant fog. It's made things incredibly simple. A soft laugh echoed from the room. Elena figured it was the younger guy. She really doesn't suspect a thing. Elena has never suspected anything. Victor's voice was now laced with a contempt that squeezed the air from Elena's lungs. It was her defining quality. Sweet, naive Elena Moretti, barely 24 years old, orphaned at 22, and stuck with a shipping empire she was completely unqualified to run. The board members, her dad's old buddies, were circling like sharks. She was desperate for a savior to make the tough calls. And you were more than willing to step in, Marco pointed out. I was pragmatic. Enzo Moretti spent 40 years building that company. His daughter would have run it into the ground in 6 months. Our marriage benefited us both. Except she thinks you're obsessed with her. Elena believes what I tell her to believe, and she has believed it for 2 years. 2 years of playing the devoted husband, a show that was set to end in 3 weeks. Elena's back hit the cold wall. She didn't even realize she was moving until she was sliding down it, her legs completely shot. The pill bottle escaped her hand for good this time, rolling silently on the dark floor. The only thing she could hear was the storm and the frantic beat of her own heart. 3 weeks, the young guy repeated. Are you certain of the plan? A car crash, Victor said flatly. She's been on those pills for months. Her reflexes are gone. All it takes is a rainy night, a sharp turn on Storrow Drive, and maybe a small mechanical failure. Marco's team will set it up. And if there's an investigation? There will be no investigation. The narrative is perfect. A pregnant, unstable Elena Moretti loses control of her car in a storm. A tragedy. I will be devastated, of course. The media will go nuts for it. Shipping heiress dies in horrific accident. Husband vows to carry on her legacy. I'll have Moretti Shipping absorbed into the Moretti Castellano Group inside of a month. The Castellanos are cool with this? Antonio Castellano has been on board from the jump. In fact, this was all his idea. He needed our Atlantic shipping routes. I needed the company. Elena was just the cost of doing business for both of us. The younger man let out a soft whistle. That's cold. It's business, Victor corrected him. It was never personal. Elena slapped a hand over her mouth, fighting back the acid rising in her throat, choking down the scream that was trying to claw its way out. Never personal. 2 years. 2 years in the same bed, believing his touch meant something, that his words were real. 2 years of making herself smaller, quieter, the perfect wife he wanted. and less a part of the company her father died for. And every single second was just a countdown to her own murder. There was no baby. The child she'd been cherishing in her mind, the future she'd been building, was a complete fabrication. The pills she took without question, thinking they were helping her, were actually her poison. They were just another weapon to make her easier to handle, easier to eliminate. 3 weeks. In 3 weeks, Victor was going to put her in a car and make sure she died in it. "When do we move the papers?" Marco asked. "Tomorrow. I need Elena's signature on the updated will, the one making me the only beneficiary and executor. She'll sign it. She signs anything I put in front of her now." It was the horrible truth. Elena couldn't remember the last time she'd even bothered to read a document before signing. Victor would always say something about routine paperwork, boring legal stuff, and she trusted him completely. The pills made her so foggy and exhausted that it was just simpler to smile and sign where he pointed. She had signed her own death warrant, and she had probably thanked him for it. "And if she doesn't sign?" the younger voice asked. "She will, but on the off chance she refuses, we have other options. The timeline gets more complicated, but the result is the same. One way or another, Moretti shipping is mine by the end of the year." Elena's fingers brushed against the pill bottle on the floor. She closed her hand around it. The prescription said lorazepam, for anxiety, to be used for panic attacks. Except she had never had a panic attack in her life until 6 months ago. She had been dealing with the company, the raw grief from her parents' deaths, the insane pressure from the board. She was exhausted, yeah, but she was coping. Then Victor suggested she talk to someone, Dr. Hammond, his good friend, a guy who could supposedly help her. The pills started. The fog rolled in. And Elena Moretti began to vanish, piece by painful piece, until a total stranger was staring back from her mirror. "Is she upstairs now?" the young man asked. "No, she's at dinner with her sister. She won't be back until very late." With a groan from his chair, Victor was on his feet. He muttered something about needing to check the Castellano agreements, obsessing over route divisions. As his footsteps headed for the study door, Elena scrambled up, her body shaking uncontrollably. She booked it for the servants' staircase, moving faster than she had in ages. Behind her, the door swung open. "Marco, get the car. We're meeting Antonio at the club in 1 hour. You got it, boss." Elena hit the landing, disappearing into the shadows as the men moved through the house below. Victor's confident footsteps echoed through the hall, a sound of total ownership, with Marco's heavy boots right behind. The front door opened and slammed shut. A car engine fired up outside. Then, dead silence. Elena waited, counting to 100, then 200 just to be safe. Totally sure they were gone, she crept down the stairs on legs that felt like jelly. She went straight back to the study, shoving the door open. The air was thick with Victor's expensive cologne and old leather. His desk was a massive mahogany beast, covered in neat stacks of paper and a laptop she knew was locked down tight. The walls were lined with books he never touched and photos from their wedding. Elena, glowing in white, smiling like she actually believed in fairy tales. And Victor, his hand clamped on her waist, flashing a picture-perfect fake smile. She stared at that fake photo for a minute before hitting the desk drawers. The first 3 were locked up tight, but the 4th one slid right open. Inside were files with names she recognized: Moretti Shipping, Castellano Group, and a bunch she didn't. She spread them out on the desk. All of it was revenue projections, merger plans, route takeovers. But then she saw it, buried at the bottom, a folder labeled EM Estate. Elena's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside were documents she'd signed over the last 6 months, a brand new will, a power of attorney, transfer agreements, page after page with her own signature staring back at her. Bro, every signature was a legal nail in her own coffin. Each one had systematically stripped her of her power, and at the very bottom was the final boss, a document she hadn't signed yet. The final will making him the sole owner of every single thing she had. A little sticky note was attached. Have E sign by October 15th. Today was October 8th. 1 week. He was plotting to get her final signature in just 1 week. Elena collapsed into Victor's chair, the leather still warm from the man who was literally planning her death. She stared at the papers, at her own name, at a life that was a complete and total fraud. Every single kiss, every touch, it was all a lie. Every whispered promise, the way he proposed right after her parents' funeral, swearing she'd never be alone, the way he took over company meetings because she was too wrecked with grief, the way he promised the pills from Dr. Hammond were helping her get better, that everything would be okay, total deception, all of it. And right then, Elena realized her hands had stopped shaking. The tremor that had made her feel so weak for months was just gone. She looked at the pill bottle in her hand, got up, walked to the private bathroom, and dumped every last tablet straight into the toilet. She watched them swirl down the drain, flushing them away just like they planned to flush her away. The woman in the mirror looked different, sharper. The fog in her brain was lifting, replaced by something else. A cold, hard realization of what she was. A dead woman walking. That's what she'd been for months, maybe longer. But she wasn't gone yet. Not by a long shot. Elena marched back to the study, pulled out her phone, and took pictures of every single document in that file. Every signature, every clause, every piece of evidence of how Victor had systematically taken her life apart. Then she put everything back exactly where she found it. By the time she was done, her hands were rock steady, her mind clearer than it had been in 6 months. She locked his study, went upstairs to the bedroom she shared with the snake, and packed a single bag. She only took clothes, cash, and her passport, leaving behind all the jewelry Victor had bought her. The credit cards were useless. He watched those accounts like a hawk. She took her mother's wedding band, the last piece of her parents she had. And she grabbed the bottle of prenatal vitamins from the nightstand, the ones Dr. Hammond prescribed for a pregnancy that was never real. Elena paused at the door, taking one last look at the golden cage she was leaving, the king-sized bed with its silk sheets. The walk-in closet was stuffed with outfits Victor had personally approved. The vanity where she sat every morning, popping the pills that kept her foggy and compliant. Man, she had been so dumb, so trusting, never again. Elena flipped the lights off and walked out. She drove to a hotel on the other side of the city, paid cash for a room, and turned her phone off. She sat on the bed and just let it all hit her. The sting of betrayal, the white-hot rage, and the terrifying chill of how close she came to getting taken out without even knowing it. Then she opened her laptop and started searching for one name. Adrian Keller, Victor's #1 rival. The guy who was trying to buy Moretti shipping right before Victor swooped in with a marriage proposal. The guy Victor had publicly humiliated and destroyed. If there was one man on earth who wanted to see Victor Moretti burn, it was Adrian Keller. Elena found his company's website, Keller Maritime, based in New York. Import-export with shipping lines all over Europe and Asia. Smaller than Moretti shipping, but growing fast. She found his email address in a press release from 3 years ago. And then, at 2 in the morning, as rain hammered the hotel window and her life was a smoldering wreck, Elena Moretti typed a message to a man she'd never met. Mr. Keller, my name is Elena Moretti. In 3 weeks, my husband is going to murder me and take my company. I have proof. If you want to absolutely destroy him, meet me tomorrow. I'll show you everything. EM. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. Then she lay on the bed, stared at the ceiling, and waited for her old life to finish burning down. By morning, Adrian Keller had replied. The message was short and sweet. An address in South Boston and a time, 2 p.m. Elena got there early. The warehouse was the exact kind of sketchy place that would have terrified her a week ago. Crumbling brick, busted windows smelling of salt water and rust. She parked in the empty lot, grabbed the folder of photos she'd printed at a 24-hour copy shop, and walked inside. Adrian Keller was waiting in what used to be an office. His back was to her, staring out a grimy window at the harbor. Mrs. Moretti. He didn't even turn around. You're either incredibly brave or incredibly desperate. Both, Elena shot back. That made him face her. He was younger than she expected, maybe 35, with dark hair and eyes that looked like they missed nothing. He was wearing a suit that cost more than her car and was looking at her like she was a puzzle he was about to solve. You said you had proof. Elena dropped the folder on the rusty desk between them. Everything. Documents showing his asset transfers. A statement from the doctor who faked my pregnancy. Financials linking him to the Castellano group. He's planning to stage an accident 3 weeks from now. Maybe sooner. Adrian picked up the folder and started flipping through the pages. His face was a total poker face, but she saw a flicker of something in his eyes. Maybe interest. Maybe calculation. Why bring this to me? Because you despise him, Elena said straight up. Because he took something from you and now he's trying to take everything from me. Because I did my research last night and you're the only one with the motive and the money to help me. Help you do what exactly? Ruin him. Elena's voice was solid steel. Take it all. His business, his reputation, his freedom. I want him to lose everything just like he planned for me. Adrian put the folder down. And what's in it for me? Moretti shipping. Once Victor is out of picture and I get control back, I'll sell it to you. Half its market value. You've been trying to get those Atlantic routes for years. Now they're yours. That's an extremely generous offer. It's a fair trade. You help keep me from getting unalived. I give you the thing you've always wanted. Adrian just watched her for a long minute. Elena forced herself to meet his gaze, not to flinch, not to show the fear that was still bubbling under her rage. You know what you're asking, right? He finally said. This isn't some simple corporate takeover. Your husband has powerful allies, the Castellanos for one. They won't just let their investment go up in smoke, I know. You'll have to go back to that house, to him, and play the part of the perfect, loving wife while we build our case. You got this? He asks. And boom! Elena gets a flashback of flushing those pills, the mental fog lifting, the soft, naive, half-awake girl she'd been for 2 whole years. That girl is gone. Yeah, she fires back. I got this. Adrian then flashes this grin that should have been a giant red flag. All right then, we got a deal, Mrs. Moretti. Welcome to the show. He puts out his hand and she shakes it. A tiny voice in her head screams that she just swapped one monster for another. But that's a problem for future Elena. Right now, she has a husband to fool and a life to snatch back. The plan kicks off, taking 3 days. Adrian, this dude is fast and crazy efficient. His network was on a level Elena never even imagined. He had lawyers, PIS, guys who could dig up skeletons buried in concrete. In just 48 hours, they had way more than just her pics. They had bank records proving Victor was a gambling addict before they even got hitched. They had texts between him and Antonio Castellano about the whole Moretti scheme. They even had receipts for the hormones used to fake her pregnancy. And get this, Dr. Hammond wasn't a real therapist. He was a physician's assistant who lost his license for prescription fraud. Victor was paying him cash under the table for 2 years. Your husband, Adrian says, is a total amateur. This is during one of their meetings, held in some slick high-rise office. A huge upgrade from the grimy warehouse she'd been in. He's arrogant. He was absolutely sure you'd never fight back. I didn't, Elena admits quietly. Not until I literally heard him planning my murder. Well, that's about to change. Adrian slides a small box across his desk. Your new burner phone, secure. It's for me, only me. Your old phone stays on. You use it like normal. Victor can't know you've gone dark. Elena grabs the phone. But what about the will? He needs my signature. And you're gonna give it to him. What? We need him to feel totally safe. If you push back, he'll know something's up. He'll either move up his timeline or change the plan. But if you sign, if you act your part perfectly, he'll think he's already won. And that's when guys like him get sloppy. A pit of fear forms in Elena's stomach. The idea of signing her own death sentence is insane. Look, I know this is a big ask, Adrian says, his voice suddenly calm, but it's pure strategy. We aren't letting him hurt you, Elena. We're letting him think he can. Big difference. And if he goes off script, if he tries anything early, then I call you. Adrian's eyes lock on hers. Any time, day or night, you're not in this by yourself anymore. That should have been comforting, right? But it just felt like she was stepping into a brand new cage. Still, Elena just nods. 'Cause what other choice does she have? She goes back home that night. Victor's in his study, papers everywhere. He looks up, plastering on that fake smile she used to think was real. Elena, I was getting worried. Maria said you left hours ago. I just went for a drive, Elena says, making her voice sound weak and shaky, playing the part of her old self. I needed to clear my head. You okay? You look pale. Just tired, the baby. She pauses, her hand automatically going to her stomach like she's been rehearsing for weeks. I think I'm gonna go lie down. Victor gets up, walks around the desk, and puts his hands on her shoulders. Elena has to fight every muscle in her body not to flinch. You've been overdoing it, he says. I'm always telling you to take it easy. I know, you're right. She forces herself to lean into his hug, smelling that cologne she once loved but now makes her sick. I'm sorry for being so much trouble. You're never any trouble. He kisses the top of her head. You're my wife. It's my job to take care of you. The lie just rolls off his tongue, smooth as silk. Elena pulls back with a weak smile. I should take my pill. I forgot this morning. A tiny glint of something flashes in Victor's eyes. Approval, maybe. I left them on your nightstand. Make sure you eat something first. I will. She walks upstairs, locks herself in the bathroom, and dry heaves until her ribs hurt. Then she splashes her face, looks herself in the eye, and whispers, 3 weeks. Just get through 3 more weeks. She drops the pill in the toilet, flushing it with the others, then goes to put on the performance of a lifetime. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in manipulation. Elena smiled on command. She signed the damn will he gave her hand shaking just enough to look real, and watched him stash it away, looking smug. She sat through dinners with the Castellanos, playing the perfect brainless trophy wife, while Antonio and Victor talked business. But the nights belonged to Adrian. They were gathering intel, building the legal case, and tracking every single person in Victor's corrupt circle. Adrian's lawyers were prepping documents that would freeze every one of Victor's assets the second Elena gave the word. Timing is everything, Adrian warned her at a late-night meeting. We moved too early. He'll lock this up in court forever. Too late, and you're dead. We have to hit that perfect window. And when is that? It's when he's 100% sure he's already won, when his guard is completely down. Elena got it. It was the exact same move Victor was pulling on her. Make the target feel safe, then strike when they're not looking. She was becoming just like him. That thought should have been horrifying. Instead, it felt like she was finally taking back control. There's something else, Adrian says one night, a week before the accident was supposed to happen. They're back in his office with the city lights twinkling below. Something you need to understand. What is it? When this is over, when Victor's finished and you get your company back, you're not going to be the one running it. Elena freezes solid. What are you talking about? You're 24 years old. You've got 0 experience, 0 training. The board barely respects you now, and that's with Victor pulling their strings. Once he's gone and this all goes public, they'll eat you alive. So what's the plan? I just hand it all over to you. That was our deal. The deal was I'd sell it to you, not just disappear into thin air. Adrian leans back, studying her. You've changed since that first day in the warehouse. You're a lot tougher now. I stopped taking the pills that turned me into a zombie. Of course I am. It's more than that. He gets up and walks over to the window. You've got rage, that's good. Use it, but don't let it blind you. Moretti Shipping needs a leader. That's not you, not yet. His words hit hard because they were true. For 2 years, Elena was just a puppet, the heiress who signed whatever was put in front of her. She knew nothing about running a global empire, but she could learn. Later, she says, after we deal with Victor, I'll figure it out. Adrian turns around, and his expression makes her uneasy. Fair enough. They get back to the plan, but that conversation stuck with her. A sick reminder that even if she got rid of Victor, she was just swapping one puppet master for another. But first things first, survival. The night before the big day, Elena couldn't sleep a wink. She lay next to Victor, listening to him breathe, wondering if he was dreaming about her funeral and the fake tears he was gonna cry. At 3 a.m, she snuck out of bed and went downstairs. The house was dead silent and dark. She stood in the kitchen, staring at the garden her mom used to keep. Now just a mess of weeds. The burner phone vibrated. You ready for tomorrow? It was Adrian. Elena typed back. As ready as I'll ever be. Remember, you're the one in control now. He thinks he's the predator. He has no idea you're the one who laid the trap. She put the phone down and got back into bed. Victor stirred as she slid under the covers. Can't sleep? No. Elena let her voice crack, playing scared. I'm having these awful nightmares. About what? Dying. Victor pulls her into a hug, and she can feel him smiling against her hair. You're not going to die, Elena. I promise. The lie was so casual, so disgustingly easy for him. Elena squeezed her eyes shut and just started counting down the hours until this whole nightmare was over one way or another. The morning came way too fast. Elena woke up and Victor was already dressed, fixing his tie in the mirror. He caught her watching him and gave her that fake smile she now hated. Big day, he said. Closing Castellano deals. I should be done by 6 o'clock, then we can have a nice, quiet dinner, just the two of us. That sounds lovely, Elena lied, sitting up and pretending to be fragile. I have my appointment with the doctor. Hammond at 2 o'clock, he said. Right, the checkup. Victor leaned over the bed, kissing her forehead. Call me after. Let me know how you and our baby are. The baby, that was a complete fabrication. The appointment, that was just a cover for his accident claim. Elena just nodded, watched him leave, heard his footsteps fade, the door click shut, his car pull away. Then she grabbed the secure phone. Adrian answered on the first ring. He's gone? Yep. He thinks I'm at a doctor's appointment at 2 o'clock. Perfect. Gives us the whole afternoon. Marco is already on him. The second he meets that mechanic, we'll have all the proof we need. Elena's knuckles were white around the phone. And if this whole thing goes sideways, nothing's going wrong. Trust me. Faith. The word meant nothing to her anymore, but she was out of options. She got dressed and drove to the office building Adrian picked out. It wasn't his usual spot, but a neutral zone, a law firm in the financial district with plenty of security and witnesses. Adrian was there when she walked in, flanked by two people she'd never seen. A woman in her 50s with eyes that could see right through you, and a younger guy with a laptop who looked like he lived in a world of code. Elena, meet Margaret Chen, my head lawyer, and Paul Reeves, our forensic accountant. Adrian motioned to the chairs around a massive table. This was where they'd plot the takedown. Elena sat down. Inside, she was a raging storm, stomach in knots, heart hammering, but her face was a calm, placid lake. Margaret started. We have an airtight case against Victor. Fraud, conspiracy, the attempt on your life. The evidence, she said, was solid, but their attack had to be surgical. What does that mean? It meant they were bypassing the legal system entirely. Victor had connections. The Castellanos were a dynasty. Official channels would just be a dead end where evidence vanished. So what's the move? Paul opened his laptop, spinning the screen to face Elena. On it, a dizzying spiderweb of financial crimes spun before her eyes. We go public, he said. Not to the cops, but to the board of Moretti Shipping. Damn. They were going to expose Victor to the only people he actually respected, his peers. They were going to incinerate his reputation before he could spin a single lie. And then he's a guy with nothing left to lose, Margaret said, her voice flat. That makes him dangerous, which is why you need to be somewhere safe. Elena shook her head. No, I'll be there. I have to watch his world fall apart when he learns it was me. Adrian leaned in. Elena. She met his gaze, her voice now like steel. I need to be there. He tried to take my company and my life. I am not hiding while other people fight my war. A heavy silence fell over the room. Margaret and Paul glanced at each other. Adrian's expression was a mask she couldn't read. Fine, he finally gave in. You'll be there, but you follow our lead to the letter. No freelancing. The second things get unstable, you walk. Agreed? Agreed. Margaret pulled out a new file. All right, the timeline. An emergency board meeting is scheduled for next week, called by you, the majority shareholder. Victor has no idea. How did you? I forced the meeting, Adrian cut in. With proxy votes, I've spent the last 6 months locking down. From minority shareholders who were losing confidence in Victor. It wasn't enough power for a takeover, but it was just enough to force a meeting. Elena just stared at him, the sheer scale of his plan finally sinking in. You've been setting this up for 6 months. I've been setting this up since the day your husband stole what should have been mine, Adrian said, his voice completely devoid of warmth. Your crisis just provided the perfect opportunity. So that was it. Not a rescue mission, but a hostile takeover. Adrian's revenge was just waiting for a weapon, and Elena had become it, a truth she already suspected. What about tonight? She asked. Victor expects me to crash my car. Let him, Paul said, pulling up a grainy traffic camera feed. We've got eyes on Marco. The moment he contacts the mechanic hired to mess with your car, we record all of it. Tonight, you don't drive. You take our car service. If Victor asks, you felt sick. A precaution for the baby. He'll be suspicious. Maybe, but his arrogance is his greatest weakness. A one-day delay won't change his plan. It'll just make him recalculate. Elena wanted to believe him, to trust that Victor's own ego would be his downfall. But she'd trusted him once before, a lifetime ago, and she still had the scars. The meeting dragged on for another hour, a detailed walkthrough of every possible scenario and backup plan. By the time she left, Elena's head was throbbing, her hands shaking again. This wasn't from the pills, but from the crushing weight of what was coming. She drove back to the house and just sat in the driveway, taking a long moment before she could face going inside. The home was now just a gallery of her own mistakes. Every room held a memory now tainted. The kitchen, where Victor pretended to be thrilled about a fake child. The bedroom, where he wove a cocoon of lies. The study, where he planned her murder. Upstairs, she changed her clothes and waited. At 6:30, Victor got home. She heard the door, his footsteps searching for her through the halls. She stayed in the bedroom, a silhouette against the window, not really seeing anything. Elena. He appeared in the doorway. Are you okay? Just tired. She didn't turn. The appointment took a while. Is everything good with the baby? Dr. Hammond says everything is fine. I just need to rest. She could feel his relief, heard him cross the room, felt his hand on her shoulder. I'm glad. I worry about you. The lie was so smooth, so natural for him. Elena turned, looked him in the eyes, and let hers fill with tears. I love you. You know that, don't you? Victor's expression softened. Or maybe it was just a new mask clicking into place. I know. I love you too. He pulled her into a hug, and Elena closed her eyes, imagining all the different ways she would watch him burn. I don't really feel up to driving tonight, she whispered against his chest. Can we please just order in? Of course, whatever you need. It was perfect, exactly as Paul predicted. They ate Thai food in the living room, while some movie she would never remember played. Victor's eyes kept darting to his phone. waiting for the update from Marco that her car was now a death trap. But the message he was waiting for was never going to come, because Marco was being watched, documented, and recorded. Every text, every call, every single move was another nail in the coffin they were building for Victor. At 10 o'clock, Elena faked a yawn. "I think I'll go to bed." "I'll be up soon, just gotta get through some emails." She went to her room, locked the door, and took out the encrypted phone. "Status," she messaged Adrian. The reply was immediate. "Marco made contact at 4:47 p.m. Mechanic confirmed payment. We have video, audio, and the financial transaction. It's done." Elena sat on the bed, the words glowing in the dark. It's done. She had it. Undeniable proof that her own husband had paid to have her killed. Relief should have hit her like a tidal wave. Instead, all she felt was an Arctic chill. "Board meeting is set for Friday." Adrian's next text came through. 3 days. Can you keep this up for that long? 3 days of this performance. 3 nights, sleeping next to a man who wanted her dead. 3 days in a role she had perfected over 2 long years. "Yes," she typed back. "I can do 3 days." "Good. Get some rest. You're going to need it." Elena put the phone away and got under the covers. An hour later, Victor came to bed. He wrapped an arm around her waist, like he always did, pulling her close as if he actually cared. Elena lay there in the dark, eyes wide open, counting down the hours until Friday. The next 3 days were a complete blur, a weird, suspended moment in time. Elena moved through the house like a ghost, playing her part with terrifying accuracy. She returned Victor's smiles. She ate what he gave her. She took the fake prenatal pills and pretended to rest while he was working. And each night, once his breathing evened out into sleep, she was on a call with Adrian's team. They ran through her statement for the board, rehearsing her tone, her timing, the precise second she would drop the evidence that would destroy her husband. Margaret coached her to stay detached, to let the strategy overpower her emotions. "He's going to react," Margaret warned her. "It will be brutal. He will try to frame you as unstable, use the pills against you. You have to be prepared for that." "I'm ready." "Are you?" Adrian's voice cut in. "Because when you walk into that room, there's no turning back. Victor will know you betrayed him. The Castellanos will know. You'll be putting a target on your back that will never go away, even if we win." Elena met his gaze. "I already have a target on my back. At least this way, I'm the one holding the gun." Something changed in Adrian's face, a flicker of approval, or maybe he recognized a kindred spirit. "Then don't miss," he said. "So get this. Thursday night, Victor strolls home late. He spots Elena in the study at his desk, thumbing through the company files he left out. She's been pulling all-nighters, getting reacquainted with the empire her dad built, the one she let slide while she was in a drugged-out fog. "Elena," he's just standing there, totally floored. "What are you doing?" "Reading," she says, without missing a beat. "Figured out I know jack about this company anymore. Time to change that." Victor creeps into the room like he's dealing with a wild animal. "You should be resting." "The baby's fine, and I'm sick of being useless," Elena snaps back, grabbing the files. "My father gave his life for this. The least I can do is understand it." For a hot second, you see it on his face, that first flicker of real suspicion. Then, he fakes a smile. "Of course, that's great. I can help you with the complicated stuff." "That's okay. I'd rather do it myself. She breezes past him, clutching his papers, feeling his stare burn into her back all the way upstairs. That night, Victor didn't get a wink of sleep. Elena could feel him lying there, wide awake, his mind spinning, trying to figure out what just flipped the script. Let him stew in it, she thought. Let him choke on the same dread he fed me. Friday morning rolls in under a miserable gray sky. Elena suits up in one of her mom's Navy power suits, the only piece of her old self she rescued from the pill haze. Hair up, subtle makeup, pearl earrings like little hard facts. She's here as an heiress, not some trophy wife. Victor's already downstairs. He gives her a look, his brow wrinkled. You look sharp. Got plans? A board meeting, she replies, her voice silky smooth as she pours coffee. An emergency session, did I forget to tell you? A dead silence hangs over Victor. No, you did not. My bad. Super last minute. Some minority shareholders are freaking out about quarterly numbers. She sips her coffee, her eyes locked on him over the rim. Probably nothing. Who called the meeting? Not totally sure. Margaret Chen's office hit me up yesterday, said it was urgent. A muscle in Victor's jaw twitches. Margaret Chen is Adrian Keller's lawyer. Is she? I had no idea. Elena sets her cup down. Is that a problem? No, not at all. But he's already turning away, phone in his hand, hissing into it, desperate to find out what was going down. Elena finishes her coffee, grabs her bag, and heads for the door. Elena! Victor's hand darts out, snagging her arm. I'm coming with you. That's not necessary. I'm going. His grip was like a steel trap, promising a bruise. Elena's eyes dropped to his hand, then back to his face, where she saw it for the first time. Not the act, not the fake charm. Pure fear. Very well, she said, her voice a quiet trap. We'll go together. The drive was a silent war zone, his knuckles white on the steering wheel while Elna watched the rainy city blur past. Up ahead, the Moretti shipping tower stood like a monument, her father's legacy in glass and steel. The boardroom was on the top floor. She'd only been there once since her dad died, for the meeting that made Victor the acting CEO. She was just a ghost at the corner while they gave away her birthright. But not today. The room was buzzing with tension, already full of board members, old guys in expensive suits who'd known her since she was a kid. Antonio Castellano, a silver-haired shark, was at the far end. Adrian Keller stood by the windows, a shadow against the storm, his head turned when Elena walked in, and their eyes locked for a second. Then she marched to the head of the table, to her father's seat, and watched Victor's expression absolutely curdle as he got it. Margaret Chen stood up. Thank you all for coming. This meeting was called by Elena Moretti, the majority shareholder and rightful CEO, to address some grave concerns about corporate governance. Victor shot to his feet. This is a farce. Elena is in no condition to... I am in precisely the condition I need to be. Elena's voice cut through him, sharp and cold. This is my company, my father's. And I have proof you've been systematically defrauding it for the past 2 years. The room exploded. Voices clashed. Antonio Castellanos' face went dark, and Victor yelled over the chaos. This is insane. Elena, you're not well. The stress of the pregnancy. There is no pregnancy. A silence fell over the room, as sharp as a guillotine. Elena stood, opened her folder, and started sliding copies down the polished table. Victor has been paying a disgraced doctor to inject me with hormones to fake pregnancy symptoms. His plan was to paint me as unstable, easier to control, and eventually easier to get rid of. That is a monstrous lie. Victor's voice was like stone. Elena is on prescribed anxiety medication. Dr. Stephen Hammond lost his license in New York 3 years ago for prescription fraud, Margaret chimed in. We have proof of cash payments from Victor Moretti to this man, starting the month after they got married. We also have audio of Victor planning to murder his wife and take her inheritance. She hit a key, and Victor's own voice echoed in the room. A car accident? She's on those pills, her reflexes are garbage, a rainy night, a bad turn. A little mechanical failure is all it takes. Elena watched the blood drain from her husband's face. Pregnant, unstable Elena Moretti loses control of her car. A tragedy, heartbreaking. Antonio Castellano jumped to his feet. How did you get this? From the source, Adrian said from the window. In his own study, plotting a murder like it was a business deal. The mask on Victor's face completely shattered. He rounded on Elena, the monster finally showing itself. You recorded me. You betrayed me. You were going to have me killed. Elena's voice was quiet, but it hit like a sledgehammer. You faked a baby, you drugged me, and you planned my death. So yeah, I recorded you. I documented everything, and now everyone in this room knows exactly what you are. You have no idea what you've just done, Victor seethed, his hand shaking. The Castellano merger is built on fraud and attempted murder, Margaret cut in. That makes it void. It also opens up everyone involved to conspiracy charges. Antonio's eyes narrowed. This is a setup. Keller planned all of this. I didn't have to plan a thing, Adrian shot back. Victor handed me everything I needed the second he picked murder over divorce. I'm just here for the fireworks. The room blew up. The board started screaming for answers. Antonio and Victor scrambled while Margaret calmly handed out more evidence. Bank records, emails, wire transfers. In the middle of the storm, Elena sat at the head of the table watching her husband's entire world burn to the ground. Security had to clear the room. They dragged Victor out, still shouting, still spinning lies. Antonio Castellano ghosted without a word, phone glued to his ear, calling his lawyers. The board shuffled out, stunned, silent, none of them looking at Elena until it was just her, Adrian, and Margaret left. Well, Margaret said, snapping her briefcase shut. That went more or less how we expected. A tremor ran through Elena's hands as the adrenaline finally crashed. What happens now? A police investigation, fraud charges, attempted murder. Victor will fight, but the evidence is a mountain. He'll probably take a plea deal to avoid a trial. And the company? It's yours again. Full control, effective immediately. The board can whine, but legally they've got nothing. Elena nodded, the words barely sinking in. Her company, her father's legacy, hers. But the win felt hollow. Margaret left, promising to call. Adrian stayed, going back to his spot by the window, looking down at the city. You held your nerve back there, he said. I wasn't sure you had it in you. Neither was I. But you did, and now you have what you wanted. Elena watched him, saw the satisfaction on his face, and a cold feeling settled in her gut. What's your price, Adrienne? He turned to face her. The price we talked about. Moretti shipping for 50 cents on the dollar. And if I say no, then you're in charge of a company you don't get, with a board that despises you, surrounded by enemies who now know you'll destroy anyone who gets in your way. Victor had a lot of powerful friends, Elena. They won't forget this. So I just surrender it? let you take what my father built. You won't surrender it, you'll sell it. For a very nice price. In return, I'll give you the protection and guidance you're gonna need to survive the hurricane that's coming. A muscle in Elena's jaw tightened. You set this all up. You were never saving me. You were just positioning yourself for a takeover. I was doing both, Adrian said, stepping closer. You were drowning. You still are. This isn't the end, Elena. This was just the first move. And if I want to make my own moves, then you'll fail. He said it like a fact, no malice at all. You're smart. You're vicious when you have to be. But you're not ready for this world, not by yourself. The words stung because they were true. She had taken down Victor, but only with the weapons Adrian had built for her. If not for him, she'd be a drugged-up ghost wife on a fast track to her own funeral. But our girl learns quick. I need to think, she told him. He gave her a smirk. That's all I'm asking. Then he bounced, leaving her like a queen on an empty throne, holding a legacy she just stole back, and a future that was a total blank. Elena looked out at the city and its non-stop rain, wondering if she just traded one cage for a fancier one. She didn't go home that night. The house she had with Victor felt toxic now. Every room a monument to his lies. She crashed at a downtown hotel instead, some anonymous high-rise where cash was king and nobody cared who you were. She just sat on the bed, still in her mom's power suit, staring blankly at her phone. Her screen was a wildfire of notifications, 17 calls from Victor, 12 from random numbers, and 3 from her sister, Maria. In all the chaos, Elena forgot to give her a heads up. She called back. Elena, oh, thank God! Maria's voice was pure panic. I've been blowing up your phone for hours. What the hell is going on? A reporter had called her, asking about Victor and fraud allegations. It's complicated. Complicated? Elena, they're saying your husband tried to have you murdered. Elena shut her eyes, the brutal truth hitting her. He did. A dead silence stretched over the line. Then quietly, I'm coming over. Where are you? Maria, I'm okay. Where are you? Elena gave in, texting the hotel address. 20 minutes later, someone was pounding on her door. It was Maria, a perfect copy of their mother. She had the same dark hair, the same sharp eyes that saw everything. Maria took one look at her and pulled her into a hug so tight it hurt. You should have told me, Maria whispered. The absolute second you knew. I couldn't. I had no idea who to trust. Me. You trust me. Maria pulled away, grabbing Elena's shoulders with iron certainty. Always me. You get it? Elena nodded, the tough girl act she'd been wearing for weeks finally cracking. With Maria there, it was real, so she let it all out. The secret study, the damning recording, the fake pregnancy, the pills, Adrian's sketchy help, the epic boardroom takedown, and the look on Victor's face as his entire world went up in flames. Maria soaked it all in without saying a word, her face getting stormier with every detail. That son of a bitch, she hissed when Elena was done. I'll kill him myself. The cops have him. Margaret's sure the charges will stick. And this Adrian Keller character, you trust him? Elena paused. I need him. That's not what I asked. No, she admitted. I don't trust him. But he helped when I was totally alone. Maria's jaw went rigid. For what price? The company. He wants to buy Moretti Shipping. Oh, absolutely not. Elena, that company is Dad's legacy. It's our legacy. You didn't survive that monster just to hand it all over to some other guy who wants to use you. I don't know how to run it. Victor was right about that, at least. Then you learn, Maria shot back, grabbing Elena's hands. You're 24, not dead. You've got time to figure it out, and you've got me. I might not know a thing about shipping, but I know business, and I know when you're getting played. Elena wanted to believe her, to think she could pull this off without Adrian's safety net, without swapping one master for another. But the doubt was still there, a whisper telling her she was way out of her league. Stay with me tonight, she said instead. I don't want to be by myself. Maria nodded. I'm not going anywhere. They got room service, choked down some terrible pasta with even worse wine, and for a couple of hours, Elena got to just be a little sister again. Not a widow, not a CEO, not the woman who just blew up her husband's life, just Elena. By midnight, Maria was asleep in the other bed. Elena just lay there, awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to game plan her next move. Her phone buzzed. The burner. It was Adrian. We need to talk. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., my office. Elena stared at the message for a hot minute before typing back a single word. Fine. She didn't sleep a wink. By morning, the story had gone nuclear. Elena's normal phone was drowning in a tsunami of notifications, news alerts, social media tags, messages from ghosts of her past. The news was unavoidable. Shipping heiress exposes husband's murder plot. Boston CEO arrested for fraud and attempted murder. Moretti marriage was a sick lie. Somebody had leaked the recording. Not the whole thing, but the good parts. Victor's voice, cold as ice, talking about her death like it was just another business expense. Elena sat on the hotel bathroom floor, scrolling through the articles, watching her private nightmare become public entertainment. You okay? Maria was at the door, holding coffee. They're calling me brave, Elena said, her voice totally flat. Courageous, a survivor. Like I had a choice. You did have a choice. You could have run. You chose to fight. I chose revenge. Sometimes they're the same thing. Maria gave her the coffee. What time is your meeting with Keller? 10. I'm coming with you. That's not up for debate. You are not facing that shark alone. Elena was too drained to argue. She showered, changed into the clean clothes Maria brought over, and let her sister drive her straight into the lion's den. The office was just as she remembered. Slick, modern, and designed to make you feel worthless. Adrian was waiting in the conference room with Margaret and another guy Elena had never seen before. He was older, maybe 60, with a face that screamed he'd seen it all and wasn't impressed by any of it. Elena, and you must be Maria. Adrian stood, offering his hand. Maria completely ignored it. Let's skip the small talk. What do you want? Adrian's smile was frigid. Direct. I like that. This is James Rutherford, former CEO of Atlantic Maritime. He's agreed to consult on the transition. What transition? Maria's voice was sharp enough to cut glass. The sale of Moretti shipping to Keller Maritime, just like Elena and I discussed. Elena isn't selling. Adrian's gaze shifted to Elena. Is that true? Elena looked from her sister to Adrian, then to the dude who was supposed to manage the handover of her dad's life's work. I don't know, she said, being honest. I need some time to think. You don't have time. Adrian's voice turned to steel. The story's out. Every reporter in Boston is digging into your company. Your board is in chaos. Your investors are panicking. You need stability, and you need it yesterday. What I need, Elena said softly, is to understand what I'm actually losing here. Margaret chimed in then. Moretti Shipping is currently valued at around $200 million. Adrian's offer is $100 million, half price, as you agreed. That's $100 million she's leaving on the table, Maria snapped. That's $100 million that buys her a life, Adrian shot back. Without my help, Victor would have killed her. This is the price of survival. This is extortion. This is business. Elena shot to her feet. I need to see it. The company. I need to understand what I'm deciding on. Adrian frowned. You've been to the headquarters. I've been to the boardroom. I've sat in meetings where men talked over me. I have never actually seen what the company does. The ships, the routes, the people doing the work. I want to see everything before I make a choice. That could take weeks. Then it takes weeks. Elena met his stare. You said I don't know how to run this place. Maybe you're right. But I'm not signing it away until I at least know what I'm signing. A tense silence took over the room. Margaret looked at Adrian. Maria looked at Elena with the flash of pride. Adrian leaned back, sizing Elena up like she was a brand new puzzle. 1 week, he said finally. I'll give you 1 week to tour the whole operation, talk to the crew, and get the lay of the land. After that, we finalize the sale. 2 weeks. 1 week, Elena, that's the offer. Elena wanted to argue, but she saw she'd hit a hard limit. Adrian's patience had been a weapon, and it just hit its breaking point. 1 week, she agreed. Adrian stood up. James will coordinate the tour. He knows the industry inside and out. Use him. Learn fast. The meeting ended with handshakes she barely felt and deals she wasn't sure she could keep. Maria drove her back to the hotel, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. You're actually thinking about it, Maria finally said, selling. I'm considering not being a complete idiot. Adrian's right, I don't know what I'm doing. So learn. That's the time you just bought yourself. 1 week isn't enough time to learn a shipping empire. No, but it's enough to find out if you want to. Elena just stared out the window as the city blurred by. Somewhere in Boston, Victor was rotting in a cell, probably still plotting some way out. Somewhere else, the Castellanos were doing damage control. And everywhere, people were talking about her. The naive wife who played her husband, the heiress who took back her empire. Except she hadn't. Not yet. She had just swapped Victor's prison for Adrian's leash, and now she had to figure out how to break free from both. The tour started the next morning at 7 a.m. James Rutherford picked her up in a car that looked older than she was and probably cost more than her apartment. He wasn't big on small talk, a fact she was extremely grateful for. First stop on the revenge tour, the shipyard south of the city, the beating heart of the Moretti shipping fleet. Elena had never set foot here. Victor the Snake had always sold her some line about it being too dangerous, too industrial for a lady. She gets it now. It was just another cage he built to lock her out of her own damn birthright. The place was massive, a war zone of cranes, shipping containers, and giant vessels being torn apart and put back together. The air was thick with salt, diesel, and rust. Guys in hard hats moved like an army, their shouts cutting through the roar of machinery. James just handed her a hard hat and a safety vest. Your old man used to be here every week. He knew most of these dudes by name. Elena threw on the vest, feeling like she was cosplaying in her own life story. I don't remember any of that. You were a kid, but they remember him, and they sure as hell remember you. They started the walkthrough, with James dropping knowledge bombs about different ships, cargo routes, and repair schedules. Elena tried to download it all, but her brain was screaming. It was a secret language Victor had made sure she never learned. A foreman, an old-timer with a face like a road map and kind eyes rolled up on them. "Ms. Moretti, it's good to see you down here." "Thanks. Sorry, I don't—" "Dan Callahan, I worked with your pop for 20 years. His eyes flicked to James, then locked back on Elena. "We heard about your husband, about the stunt he tried to pull. I'm sorry for what you went through." "Thank you. Your father would be damn proud of how you shut that down. That took real guts." A lump formed in Elena's throat. "I'm not so sure about that. I am. Enzo Moretti built this whole operation on pure grit and willpower. Looks like you got a double dose of both." Dan was gone before Elena could even respond. Surrounded by the steel and concrete kingdom her father built, she felt its crushing weight land right on her shoulders. "He's not wrong," James muttered. Enzo was stubborn as a mule. He refused to sell even when the market cratered in 2008. Swore Moretti Shipping would ride out any storm, did it? By the skin of its teeth. He leveraged everything he owned, buried himself in debt. He could have lost the entire kingdom, but he battled through and the company survived. And now I'm thinking of handing it over to Adrian Keller. James went dead silent for a second. "Can I be real with you? Please." "Keller is a shark. Slick, merciless, and patient. He's been circling this company for years, just waiting for a sign of weakness. Your marriage to Victor was his opening. You running for your life was his second chance. He'll take this company, gut it for the profitable parts, and torch the rest. And if I don't sell, then get ready for the fight of your life. The board despises you. Half of them are Victor's puppets. The Castellanos will be coming for blood over that deal you blew up. And you're right, you don't know this business, not yet. So I'm trapped no matter what. Maybe. Or maybe you're exactly what this company is crying out for." Elena's eyes narrowed on him. "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" "Your father built Moretti Shipping on trust. He knew his guys, his captains, his clients. Victor boiled it all down to numbers on a screen. Maximum efficiency, zero soul. The company has been bleeding out slowly under his command. You have the power to stop it. I wouldn't even know where to start. Your father didn't know when he started either. He learned. And so can you." They spent the rest of the day on the docks. James made intros with captains and crew, walking her through cargo manifests and shipping timetables. By sundown, Elena's brain was swimming in a sea of data she could barely process. But something else was stirring in her guts, a flicker of something she hadn't expected. Intrigue. That night, she got back to her hotel and went into full-on war room mode, diving into everything: Moretti Shipping, financials, market intel, rival strategies. She read until her eyes burned and her brain begged for a ceasefire. Maria found her at 2 a.m, drowning in a sea of spreadsheets and glowing screens. "You should be sleeping. I have to understand this. Elena, I have 4 days left, Maria. Just 4 days to figure out if I can actually do this or if I should just take Adrian's money and vanish." Maria dropped into the chair across from her. "What's your gut screaming at you? My gut is screaming that I'm terrified." "Good. That means you're not an idiot." Maria slid her report over, her eyes scanning the numbers. "What's this? Third quarter earnings. We bled 2 major accounts to the competition in the last 6 months. Victor was so obsessed with plotting my murder, he let the damn company fall apart. Can you win them back? I have no freaking clue. Maybe if I had any idea what I was doing. Then we'll figure it out together. Maria popped open her own laptop. I might not get shipping, but I get business analytics. We'll take this whole problem apart, piece by piece. They ground it out until dawn, with Maria translating the dense financial garbage into plain English Elena could use. As the sun came up, the ugly truth about Moretti shipping was laid bare. This wasn't her father's empire. It was the crumbling mess Victor had left to rot. It can be saved, Maria finally said, but it's going to take a real fight, not just signing some paper from Adrian. I get that. And you're going to need allies, people you can count on. Who? The entire board is either on Team Victor or scared stiff of the Castellanos. Maria paused, a strategic glint in her eye. What if you brought in your own people, got the board, build a new one? With what credentials? I played trophy wife for 2 years. But I didn't. Maria's eyes locked with hers. I ran the family foundation, I handled investments, and I fought with lawyers and board members who wrote me off because I was young and a woman. Does any of that sound familiar? Elena could only stare at her sister, mind blown. You want a job at Moretti Shipping, I want to help you defend what's yours, if you actually decide to fight for it. The foundation, it practically runs itself now. And let's be honest, this is way more interesting. Something deep inside Elena's chest started to shift. That crushing loneliness, that feeling that she was in this war all by herself began to crack. All right, she whispered. If I'm all in, if I keep the company, you'll join me. I'm with you. They sealed the deal with a handshake, and Elena felt the first real spark of hope she'd had since walking into that boardroom. Maybe this wasn't so impossible after all. The next few days were a straight-up whirlwind of meetings, site inspections, and a crash course in maritime warfare. James walked her through the main office, introducing her to department heads and the key players who kept the company alive. Some people offered support, others were openly skeptical. A few were straight-up hostile, no doubt Victor's loyalists, just waiting for her to crash and burn. Elena was taking names. Who was an asset? Who was a liability? Which parts of the business were solid and which were sinking? On the 4th day, she met the legal team. Margaret and Maria were there as Elena got the full download on the disaster Victor had engineered. The Castellano deal is toast, the lead counsel said flatly, but they're threatening to sue us for breach of contract. They claim they invested capital based on Victor's word. Can they win? Not likely. But they can drag this through the mud, make it expensive and ugly. That's probably the whole plan. Bleed your cash with legal fees until you break. What's the price for breaking? 10 million, maybe 15, plus giving them sweetheart shipping rates on key routes. Elena felt her stomach turn. That's blackmail. That's business, the lawyer shot back, his voice a cold copy of Adrian's. What if we say no? Then we strap in for a legal war that will take years and cost almost as much. Either way, you're bleeding cash you probably don't have. Maria leaned forward. What if we expose why the deal really died? Reveal the Castellanos were complicit in fraud and attempted murder. The lawyer's whole vibe shifted. That is an unbelievably dangerous play. The Castellanos have friends in very high places. Their payback could come from way outside the legal system. So we should just give up, pay them off for their part in Victor's attempt on Elena's life? I am advising you to look at this from every single angle. Elena heard them going back and forth, the weight of these insane options pressing in on her. Every single choice came with a massive price tag. Every road was loaded with explosives. So this was what it meant to be in charge. Not just knowing routes and cargo, but navigating threats and power plays from people who would either bankrupt you or kill you. She thought about Adrian's offer. $100 million. A clean getaway. Let it all become someone else's headache. But then she saw her father's face, building this empire from nothing. She thought of Dan Callahan and the guys who poured their lives into Moretti shipping. She remembered the smug look on Victor's face as he planned to steal it all. "We fight," she announced. Every head in the room snapped toward her. "We fight the Castellanos. No settlement, no negotiation. I'm going to make it crystal clear that I am not Victor, and I will not be bullied by threats." The lawyer looked panicked. "Ms. Moretti, Elena, and I understand the risks, but they will not see 1 single cent from this company. If it's a war they want, then it's a war they'll get." A small, dangerous smile touched Margaret's lips. "Understood. We'll begin making the necessary preparations." After the meeting, Elena felt Maria's hand on her arm. "That was either the bravest thing I've ever seen or the dumbest," her sister said. "Probably a little of both. Dad would have approved." Elena prayed she was right. On the last day of her week, she went to face Adrian. He was in his office, perfectly dressed and impossible to read, as always. Elena sat across from him, the sales contract for Moretti shipping sitting on the table like a loaded gun between them. "So," Adrian started, "tell me what you've learned." "That you were right. I am not equipped to run a shipping company, but I can learn, and I am willing to try." Adrian's expression remained a perfect, unreadable mask. She claps back. "Maybe it's a mistake, but it's my mistake to make." "Elena, get real. You've had 1 week. You think that's anything next to your dad's 40 years in this game?" "Nope. But it's long enough to know I'm not backing down." "Even if you lose everything?" "I already lost it all once. I survived. I can handle this." Adrian leans back, his eyes sizing her up. "Wow, you're just like him. Your father. That same stubborn streak." "I'll take that as a compliment." "It's not. That attitude almost tanked this company a few times. Enzo never wanted to evolve or try new things. He ran on gut feelings and old-school deals, a combo that nearly sank him. And yet, he didn't go under. He made it. Barely. You don't get the luxury of barely. You're starting weak. Bad rep, a board that hates you, and the Castellano problem. You need power like yesterday." "Then teach me." Adrian's brow goes up. Excuse me?" "You gave me a week. In that time, I learned I can't do this solo, but I'm also not selling. So instead of buying me out, help me run it." "Your role?" "A consultant, an advisor, call it what you want. You know this game. You've been eyeing Moretti shipping for years. You gotta have a plan to fix this train wreck. And for your trouble, a 20% stake as a silent ghost partner. If we win, you get rich. If we crash and burn, you get the pieces." Adrian goes dead quiet. You can see the gears turning, calculating the odds, looking for the catch. "That wasn't the deal," he finally says. "I know. But things have changed, and so have I. This new deal is better for both of us." "Oh yeah, how?" "Buy it now, you get a broken company with pissed-off staff and legal landmines. But help me fix it, and you get a solid asset, worth way more than your original offer. Plus, you get to stick it to Victor, hard. Watch him rot in jail knowing his wife didn't just survive, she thrived." A tiny smirk hits Adrian's lips. You're learning fast. So, we got a deal? It's a maybe. I need time to think. You've got till morning. Then I move on with or without you. Elena gets up, leaves the papers, and bounces before he can see her hands shaking. She just bet her whole future on becoming a boss she wasn't even sure she could be. But she was done being the trophy wife, the rich girl, the one everyone wrote off. It was time to find out who Elena Moretti really was. Adrian's call came the next morning, before her coffee was even done. 25%, he says, skipping the small talk. And I want a seat on the board. Her heart's pounding, but her voice is pure ice. 20%, and you can watch the meetings, but you don't get a vote. 23, with advisory rights on big money moves. 22, advisory only with guaranteed weekly hours, in writing. A beat of silence, then a real low laugh from Adrian. You've been practicing. Maria coached me. Do we have a deal? We have a deal. I'll have Margaret send over the paperwork. Elena hangs up, giving herself exactly 10 seconds to feel the rush of the wind and the terror of her promise. Then she chugged her coffee and got to work. That first month was a straight-up trial by fire. Elena took over her dad's old office at the Moretti Shipping HQ, the corner spot with the harbor view. But Victor's ghost was everywhere. His awards, his fancy pens, a wedding photo that made her sick. She nuked it all. Every trace of him got boxed up and hauled out by security like it was a biohazard. Then she moved her own history in. Her mom's seascape, her dad's compass, and a giant whiteboard that turned the whole office into a war room. Maria set up in the next office and immediately started tearing apart the company's books. In less than a week, she found 3 secret accounts Victor used to siphon cash through shell companies tied to the Castellanos. He stole almost $2 million last year, Maria reports, dropping a file on Elena's desk. Is there a paper trail? Can we prosecute? Send it to Margaret. Add it to his rap sheet. Done. But Elena, this is just going to make the Castellanos angrier. They'll see it as a declaration of war. Good, let 'em. Maybe they'll get sloppy. Maria looked worried sick, but didn't push it. She knew once Elena's mind was made up, arguing was useless. James Rutherford came by twice a week, schooling Elena on the nuts and bolts of the business. He taught her to read cargo manifests, haggle with port authorities, and tell a moneymaker route from a disaster. You're picking this up way faster than I expected, he noted one day, looking over her work. Is that a compliment? It's an observation. Most people take months to get this. You've nailed the basics in weeks. The basics aren't enough. True, but it's a start. James pulled another file. We need to handle your board problem. Elena was dreading this. Of 12 board members, at least half were openly against her. They'd show up, shoot down every one of her ideas, then run to reporters saying she was ruining her dad's company. I can't just fire them, she said, not without cause. You don't fire them, you outplay them. How? James broke down the company bylaws she'd never read, the same rules Victor used to keep his power. There were clauses for adding new members, calling emergency meetings, and booting anyone who was corrupt. 3 of them are already on thin ice, James pointed out. They've been taking gifts from our rivals, which breaks the rules. You prove it, show the board, and give them a choice. Quit or get investigated. And the others? Give them an ultimatum. Get on board or get left behind when this company takes off. Once you show you know your stuff, most will fall in line. The rest will see themselves out. Elena looked at the list of names. Men who knew her dad, who'd watched her grow up, but still saw a kid playing dress-up. "I want them gone," she declared. "Every single one. Anyone who just stood by while Victor bled this company dry." "That's half your board." "Then I'll rebuild it. I want people who believe in Moretti shipping, not their own careers." "Got anyone in mind?" Elena slid over her own list, one she'd been making for weeks. Dan Callahan from the docks, 2 ship captains James vouched for, a supply chain pro Maria found, and a green shipping specialist. "None of them have traditional board experience," James observed. "Neither do I. But they get this business, and they care about the people. That's the company my dad built. That's what I'm bringing back." James just watched her for a long, quiet moment. "You know, when you first asked for help, I gave you maybe 3 weeks before you took Adrian's deal. I was wrong. You weren't the only one who thought that. You included." A small smile appeared on Elena's lips. "Especially me." Fixing the board took another month of strategic moves. Elena gathered her proof, built her case, and laid it all out in a brutal 4-hour meeting that ended with 3 forced resignations and 2 more storming out in a rage. The ones who stayed just looked shell-shocked. "This is highly unusual," said an old guy named Preston, a friend of her father's, shaking up the board without any real warning. "I did warn you," Elena said coolly. "I told all of you a month ago that a new era was starting." "You chose not to believe me. Your mistake." She then introduced her new board members, watching the old guard's faces as they realized she'd filled the room with actual experts. People who wouldn't just oppose her for being young, a woman, or an easy target. "This is still really irregular," Preston mumbled, his voice weaker now. "So was my husband trying to have me murdered for my inheritance. We're all just adapting to irregular times." The meeting ended with her motions passing. A first since she took the chair. It was a win, small but real, but every victory comes with a price tag. 2 days later, Antonio Castellano waltzed into her office, totally uninvited. Her assistant tried to stop him, but Antonio blew past her like she was invisible, sitting down in front of Elena's desk like he owned the building. "Ms. Moretti, we need to have a little chat." Elena didn't get up or offer a hand. "I have nothing to say to you." "That's a shame, because I have a lot to say to you." Antonio leaned back, completely calm. "You've made some very damaging accusations against my associates. Fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder. These are serious charges." "They're also 100% true. Victor worked with you to take my company, and I have proof." "So you have a tape of Victor Moretti running his mouth, drunk and delusional. Big deal. You have 0 proof connecting his little scheme to me." Antonio's eyes narrowed. "The money trail says you're wrong. Financial records can be twisted. Business deals get messy. You're a rookie here, Ms. Moretti. You don't get the game." "Oh, I get that you helped my husband plot my murder for a slice of my fortune. That's pretty damn simple. If I had actually wanted you gone, you'd be gone." Antonio stated it flatly like he was checking the weather. "Victor was a reckless, arrogant fool. I warned him the whole plan was garbage, but he was sure he could handle it." A shiver went right down Elena's spine. "Are you confessing to something? I'm not confessing squat. I'm telling you what's real. Victor got crushed because he misjudged you. I won't make the same screw up. Is that a threat? It's a business deal." Antonio leaned closer. "You're going under. Your board is a joke. Your name is mud, and you're making enemies like it's a sport. Let me help you out. help me. You just hinted if you wanted me dead. But I don't. I want the Atlantic shipping lanes, and you're gonna give them to me. For the right price, of course. I'll pay market rate, sign a long-term contract, and give you the political cover you'll need when this Victor mess goes nuclear. Elena tried to stay poker-faced, breaking down his insane proposal. Why would I team up with the man who helped my husband try to kill me? Because I'm the devil, you already know. Because my power can make your legal nightmares vanish or multiply, depending on my mood. Because in 6 months, when your board sees you're still drowning, you'll be desperate for an ally. I can be that ally, or I can be your living nightmare. The choice is yours. He got up, fixed his cuffs, and smiled like they'd just talked about sports. Think it over. You have my number. Then he was gone, leaving Elena in her office, her heart pounding, her mind a total wreck. She called Adrian immediately. Castellano just gave me an offer, she said the second he answered. What kind of offer? She told him everything, word for word. A long, tense silence hung on the line from Adrian. He's looking for weakness, he finally said. Victor was dead sure you were fragile. Castellano is testing that theory. What's my play? Say no. Do it publicly if possible. Make it clear you're not playing his sick game. And his comeback. We'll deal with it when it happens. But Elena, you can't show any weakness. Not to him, not to anyone. The instant you hesitate, it's over for you. Elena hung up and stared out at the harbor, at the ships carrying cargo, cash, and the heavy burden of her father's empire. A bone-deep exhaustion washed over her. She was sick of fighting, of the constant need to prove herself, of the paranoia that any decision could be the one to burn it all down. But to quit was to lose, and she'd lost enough. She wrote her reply to Castellano. It was short, professional, and final. Moretti Shipping would not be doing business with the Castellano Group, not now, not ever. She sent it, waiting for the hurricane. It hit faster than she thought. Within a week, 2 of Moretti Shipping's biggest clients canceled their contracts. No explanation, just some legal clause to end deals that had lasted for years. Maria found the connection. Both companies have massive loans from Castellano Financial Services. And want to guess who just called in those loans? He's strangling us. Setting an example. He's showing the whole world what happens to people who say no to Antonio Castellano. Pure rage boiled up inside Elena. Can we survive losing these clients? Short term, yeah. But long term, we need to replace that cash flow now, or we'll miss payroll, then we replace it. James, I need you to hit up every contact you have. I want new clients, new routes, anything to patch these holes. James looked skeptical. That's a tall order. The rumor mill is already churning that Moretti Shipping is taking on water. Nobody wants to get on a sinking ship. Then we prove to them we're not sinking. Where are we the strongest? Our European roots. They've always been solid. Your father built those relationships himself. They even held up through Victor's train wreck management. Then that's our battleground. Offer them perks, better prices, faster shipments. Do whatever you have to do to show them we're here for the long haul. The scramble to get back the lost business turned into a 3-week war. Elena pulled 16-hour days, sitting in meetings with guys who looked at her like a kid, getting low-balled by firms that could smell her desperation. She was desperate, but she learned to hide it. Adrian's help was a much bigger deal than Elena wanted to admit. He got her introductions, vouched for her, and sometimes just showed up to a meeting to lend her some of his authority. His reputation was rock solid, and him being there made people take her seriously. But it also started rumors. "Are you two a thing?" Maria asked one night when they were both too exhausted to care. Elena looked up from a contract. "What?" "Adrian Keller. The gossip is everywhere about how much time you spend together, about how he's always in your corner, and about how he looks at you. And how does he look at me? Like you're a puzzle he can't decide if he wants to solve or to smash into a million pieces." Elena let out a sharp laugh. "That sounds about right. But you're not sleeping with him." "No." "Why is that even a question?" "Because Victor used to look at you the exact same way, and we all remember how that story ended." The comment hit harder than Maria probably meant it to. Elena dropped the contract, rubbing her temples. "Adrian isn't Victor," she said quietly. "Are you sure, or is he just better at hiding who he really is?" Elena didn't have an answer. The contracts got signed in the end, enough to stabilize the company to prove they could survive Castellano's attack. Elena showed off the new deals at the next board meeting and saw the doubt on their faces finally turn into something like respect. "Good job," James told her later. "You might just pull through this." "Might?" "You're not out of the storm, but you're still afloat. That's more than most of us thought you'd manage." Elena took the compliment. That night, she went back to the house for the first time since the whole mess started. She'd been crashing with Maria or just sleeping at her office, but she needed stuff. Files, clothes, maybe some closure. The house felt haunted. Every room was a reminder of the naive woman she used to be, the wife who trusted too easily and paid the price. She moved fast, grabbing files, clothes, and her mother's jewelry from the safe. As she was about to leave, she saw Victor's desk drawer, the one he always kept locked. It was busted open, probably by the cops. Inside was another folder she hadn't seen. The label said EM Personal. Elena's hand shook as she opened it. It was full of candid wedding photos, not the official ones. In every picture, Victor was looking right at the camera, while Elena stared at him with total adoration that now just made her sick. Under the photos were documents, her medical files from a Dr. Hammond with detailed notes on hormone treatments, sedatives, psychological manipulation, and a full timeline for how they were going to tear her down, piece by painful piece. At the bottom, a single handwritten note from Victor. Insurance, for in case she ever gets smart enough to be a problem. Elena stared at the words as the awful truth hit her. Victor documented everything. It wasn't a confession. It was a weapon to use against her if she ever fought back. He was going to claim she was unstable, that the drugs were for her own good, that her accusations were just the ravings of a crazy person. He had built a cage inside a cage, and she'd been about to walk into it. But Adrian moved first. The recording, the proof, the public humiliation, it all happened before Victor could use his insurance. That meant Adrian knew. He understood Victor's sick game better than the guy who invented it. Elena grabbed the folder, threw it in her box, and walked out of that house forever. She drove straight to Adrian's building. It was super late, but she knew he'd be there. The guy was a total workaholic. His assistant was gone, so Elena could march right into his office unannounced. Adrian was at his desk, swamped with papers, his head snapping up as she came in. "Yelena, what's going on?" She dropped the folder on his desk. "You knew about Victor's backup plan, the fake medical records, the insurance policy. You knew he was going to try to paint me as insane if I ever stood up to him." Adrian looked at the folder but didn't touch it. "Yes. How long have you known?" "Since before we ever met." "So get this. Adrian's been spying on Victor for 3 years straight. He knew every single move the guy was planning to make. And bam, Elena's world just implodes. 3 years? You've been watching this whole time? Adrian's like, I was just waiting for the right moment, the perfect angle, and you gave me both. Elena's voice cracks. I gave you... She went to him as her last resort, but nope, he was already playing her. This whole deal, the help, the partnership, it was all just a big brain move to wreck Victor and get his prize. Adrian gets up real slow. That's not the full story. Oh, really? Which part's the lie? The part where you played me from day one, or where you made me think I had a choice? He fires back. You always had a choice. You could have run. But she snaps, because you made it sound like the only option. And he's like, it was the only option that let you keep your pride. Adrian's tone gets ice cold. Yeah, I knew Victor's plan. And yeah, I positioned myself to cash in on your disaster, but I also kept you alive. I gave you the ammo to destroy the man who wanted you dead. I helped you get your stuff back. That's gotta count for something. She's not having it. It's worth you getting exactly what you wanted while I thought I was in charge of my life. You were in charge, he says. I just made sure you had the right intel to make the smart moves. Elena just wants to scream, to break something, to feel anything but the crushing weight of this fresh betrayal. She asks him, were you ever gonna tell me? He hits her with, maybe, when you could handle it. Stop. Elena's words are sharp, jagged. Don't act like you did me a favor. You saw an opening and you took it. I was just the tool you used to do it. You're way more than that. Oh, am I? Or am I just another piece you're moving around your little chessboard? Adrian goes dead silent for a long beat. When he finally speaks, his voice is softer than she's ever heard. At first, yeah, you were a means to an end. But then he admits, you were a surprise, Elena. How she bent but didn't snap, how she fought back, how she learned the game. He never saw that coming. Most people would have been totally crushed. And what does that change? He's asked. It changes everything because you're not just a tool anymore. You're a player now, and that's what makes you dangerous. Elena stares him down, trying to spot the lie, looking for the angle in this sudden flash of honesty. I can't trust you, she finally says. Good, you never should. Trust is for people who don't know any better. So why stick with this? She asks. Because we need each other. Because together we're a force nobody can touch. Because like it or not, our fates are tied up now. You think the Castellanos care who's who. To them, we're one target. And damn it, he was right. Elena hated that he was right. Fine. I want total transparency, she demands. No more secrets, no more games. If you know something that affects my company or me, you tell me immediately. Done! And the partnership agreement is getting a rewrite. Equal say on all big decisions. You're not making moves that affect Moretti's shipping all by yourself anymore. A tiny smirk plays on Adrian's lips. Now you're starting to talk business. He'll have Margaret draft the changes. Elena holds the folder like a shield. I'm not your weapon, Adrian, and I am not your pawn. If we do this, we do it as equals. Equals. Adrian holds out his hand. I can live with that. Elena looks at his hand for a hot second before shaking it. She didn't trust him. She probably never would, but she was figuring out that trust isn't what you need to survive. Power is. And for the first time since this whole nightmare kicked off, Elena Moretti actually had some. The new partnership papers show up 3 days later. Elena reads every line twice before signing. Maria watches her, then pulls her aside. You know this doesn't actually make you equal, right? Adrian's been playing this game his whole life. You've been at it for 6 months. I know, but I'm a fast learner, Maria replies. That's what I'm afraid of. Elena gets it. The person she's turning into, cold, calculating, always looking for an edge, is a stranger. The old her wouldn't even recognize this woman. But the old her almost got put in the ground. This new version was still breathing. She'd take the win. The next few months were almost normal. Elena ran the company with Maria's help and Adrian's occasional advice. The board meetings got way less hostile as her people gained confidence. The company's numbers leveled out, then started climbing. Bit by bit, Moretti Shipping was becoming something her dad would have been proud of. Victor's trial was set for early spring. Margaret kept her updated. The case against him was rock solid, a total slam dunk. Victor's lawyers were already trying to cut a deal to get attempted murder knocked down to conspiracy and fraud. They're offering 15 years, Margaret said on a call. With good behavior, he could be out in 10. Elena felt sick. 10 years. Victor would be 45 when he got out. Still young enough to scheme, to start over, to ruin someone else's life. What if we refuse the deal and go to trial? She asks. Then you have to testify. You'll relive the whole nightmare in front of cameras while his lawyers pick you apart. They'll bring up the pills, call you unstable, and make the jury doubt every word you say. But we have his confession on tape, which they'll argue was recorded illegally in a private home without his consent. A sharp lawyer might get it tossed, and then our whole case gets a lot weaker. Elena closes her eyes, that old fury burning inside her. So he could just walk? He won't walk free, but he could get a much lighter sentence than he deserves. That's just how the system works. I'm sorry. The call ends, leaving Elena in her office staring at nothing. After everything, the fear, the plotting, dragging Victor's name through the mud, he could still get a win out of this. It wasn't fair, but she was learning that justice is a joke. Only power is real. She calls Adrian. I need to make sure Victor stays locked up for as long as possible. What's it gonna take? His answer? Your testimony. You get on that stand, you tell this jury exactly what he did, and you make them see a monster. Margaret says his defense will tear me to pieces. They'll try, Adrian says. But you're tougher than they think, and way tougher than Victor ever knew. He pauses. The real question is, are you ready for that kind of fight? Elena thinks about the woman who stood shaking outside that study, hearing her own death being planned. That woman was broken, barely holding on. The woman she was now would burn the whole courthouse down to make Victor pay. Set up a meeting with the prosecutors. I'll testify. Elena, I'll testify, she repeats, and I will make sure every single person in that room knows what he is. The prep was a special kind of hell. Hours and hours with the DA's office, going over every tiny detail, every second, all the evidence. They made her listen to the recording again and again until Victor's words were seared into her brain. Elena Moretti, pregnant, unstable, loses control of her car in a storm. Tragic, absolutely heartbreaking. With every replay, a piece of her turned to solid ice. Maria was there for every session, taking her own notes, asking questions the lawyers didn't. She was building her own case file, her own map of the whole scheme. You know what I can't get out of my head? Maria asked late one night. How long he must have been planning it all. The pills, the fake pregnancy, the accident. That kind of thing takes months to set up, maybe even longer. What's your point? Maria says. My point is, he was designing your death way before you had any clue you were in danger. That's not just evil, Elena. That level of patience is seriously terrifying. Elena knew exactly where this was going. You think Adrian is just like him. I think Adrian watched Victor take you apart for 3 years and did absolutely nothing until he saw an angle for himself. That's patience too, and that's terrifying too. He saved my life, Elena argues. He saved his investment. You were just the ticket. Maria grabs her hand. I'm not saying ditch him. I'm saying never, ever forget what kind of man he is. I haven't forgotten. But sometimes, late at night, as they planned business moves or he broke down maritime law, Elena wondered if maybe she was starting to. So their whole partnership was turning into something else, something she couldn't even label. Adrian was always Mr. Professional, never once stepping out of line. But there were moments, a hand on her arm during a tense deal, the way his eyes locked on her after a killer business play, that sharp defensive tone he used if anyone even thought about questioning her. It felt major. Elena just had no clue what it was, and no time to figure it out. The trial was coming, and she had to be locked in. The courthouse was a total circus when she arrived, a mob of reporters flashing cameras at her like she was the main event. She was rocking a killer black suit Maria picked out, a universe away from the soft colors Victor used to make her wear. Margaret was waiting in the steps. You good? Hell no. But I'm doing it anyway. The courtroom looked like it was straight out of a TV show. Dark wood, massive ceilings, the whole vibe screaming institutional power. And there was Victor at the defense table, looking pathetic in his orange jumpsuit, but somehow not pathetic enough. His eyes found her instantly, and for a second, Elena saw the guy who held her when she cried over a child they never had. The guy who swore it would all be okay. Then she remembered his voice on that recording, and bam! The fantasy was vaporized. The prosecution called her to the stand almost immediately. Elena put her hand on the Bible and swore the oath. The prosecutor was a woman in her 40s named Chen, no relation to Margaret, who made her career wrecking domestic abusers. She walked Elena through the story, her voice soft, but her questions like a battering ram. The marriage, the pills, the night in his study. Could you tell the jury what you heard? Elena took a deep breath. I heard my husband laying out a plan to kill me. He was talking about the timing, the method, how to make it look like a tragic accident. He talked about the fake pregnancy he engineered, about the drugs he was pumping into me. He spoke about it like... Her voice cracked. Like I was just a problem to be solved, not a person, just some roadblock. And how did that make her feel? She was terrified, betrayed, and felt like an absolute idiot for not seeing it sooner. The objection to her feelings was shut down. Chen just kept going, systematically revealing Victor as a cold-blooded monster. Then came the cross-examination. Victor's lawyer was exactly the slimeball Elena prepped for, a guy in a nice suit with a fake smile, the kind who justifies being a scumbag by calling it his job. Mrs. Moretti, you were on multiple prescriptions, weren't you? I was. The ones my husband's stooge provided, who had zero license or medical background. But you chose to take them. I chose to trust my husband when he said they'd help my anxiety. I had no clue they were designed to make me easier to control. Were you ever diagnosed with anxiety before the marriage? Nope. So this anxiety just happened to show up after you married Mr. Moretti. Elena saw the trap closing. The anxiety started when he started poisoning me. Or maybe the insane pressure of running a company while mourning your parents caused real health problems that needed meds. No, I was handling it, right up until Victor began his little project. The lawyer's mask slipped for a split second. That's a bit over the top, Mrs. Moretti. Do you have medical proof these prescriptions were harmful? Margaret shot to her feet. The prosecution already submitted Dr. Hammond's sworn statement, which confirms the drugs were meant to mess with Mrs. Moretti's psychological state. Dr. Hammond, who's facing his own charges and is probably trading his testimony for a lighter sentence, the defense lawyer snapped back. This whole mess went on for another hour. They tried to paint Elena as unhinged, a delusional woman. They twisted her secret recordings into proof that she was paranoid long before she found anything out. But Elena didn't break. For every accusation, for every twisted word, she stood her ground. The fragile wife was gone. In her place was a survivor, a warrior, the real Victor. When she finally stepped down, she was shaking with a mix of pure rage and total exhaustion. But her part was done. 3 weeks later, the jury found Victor guilty on every single charge: conspiracy, fraud, and attempted murder. The judge gave him 25 years, no chance of parole for 15. Elena wasn't even in the courtroom to hear it. She was in a meeting about Pacific trade routes when the call came. 25 years, Margaret said. He'll be almost 60 before he's even up for release. Elena said thanks, hung up, and went right back to her meeting. The wind felt empty, like a story about someone else. That night, she drove to the harbor where her dad used to take her before the empire got so huge. She sat on the pier, watching ships move like ghosts on the black water, trying to figure out what she was supposed to be feeling. Relief? Justice? All she felt was bone-deep exhaustion and completely alone. Figured I might find you here. Elena turned. It was Adrian, hands in his pockets, his usual intense vibe dialed down, like he'd actually left the office at a decent hour. How'd you know? Lucky guess. This is your thinking spot. She didn't bother asking how he knew that. Adrian saw everything. That's what made him so dangerous. He sat next to her, their shoulders almost touching, and for a long time they just watched the water in total silence. You won, Adrian finally said. Victor's in a cage, the company is safe, the Castellanos are backing off, you hit every target. So why does it feel like nothing? Because you're learning that winning doesn't fix what was broken, it just clears the board for your next move. Elena looked at him, the guy who engineered her rescue, all while playing his own complicated game. What's your next move? The usual. Grow the empire, make new allies, stay 10 steps ahead of everyone. And where do I fit into those plans? Adrian's eyes met hers, and something in them shifted. A flicker of something that looked almost genuine. That's the problem, Elena. You don't fit. You were never meant to be an equal. You weren't supposed to challenge me, to make me second-guess my own master plan, but you did. Is that a complaint? It's a fact, he paused. I've been thinking about our deal, the equal partnership, the total transparency. Anyone else would have taken the money, but you fought for real power. It was genius. You were a good teacher. I gave you the basics. You mastered the game all on your own. A warmth started spreading through Elena's chest, a feeling that was both amazing and incredibly dangerous. Why are you telling me this now? Because you need to know what you are now. You're not that scared woman from the warehouse anymore. You've become a threat to your enemies, to the Castellanos, and probably to me if I ever slip up. Should I be worried about that? That you'll decide I'm too much of a threat? A real smile hit Adrian's eyes. You should always be worried. That paranoia is what's kept you alive. He stood up, offering her a hand. Elena took it, his warm skin a shock against the cold night air, and she wondered when their business deal started feeling like something else entirely. There's something I need to show you, Adrian said, at my office, if you're up for it. Elena knew she should say no, keep the safe distance she'd fought so hard for, but she went with him anyway. Adrian's skyscraper was a ghost town at this hour, occupied only by security and memories. They took the elevator up to his floor, walking past the exact rooms where they plotted Victor's demise, and into his private office. He handed her a folder. Inside were deeds and transfer papers, a bunch of legal documents she couldn't make sense of right away. What is all this? The house, your old house. I'm guessing you don't want it. I had it valued and prepped for sale, but before I list it, you get an option. An option to do what? To burn it to the damn ground. Elena's head snapped up. Adrian's face was dead serious. I bought the property next to it 6 months ago. If we demolish both buildings, the combined land is worth a hell of a lot more. We could build something brand new, or we can just wipe it off the map and leave nothing. Your call. You're serious. Completely. That house is a monument to everything Victor did to you. I figured you might want it gone. Elena looked back at the papers, at the address of the home that was supposed to be her future, the prison where she was drugged, manipulated, and almost murdered. The thought of watching it all burn was a crazy, powerful idea. When? She whispered. The second you say so. The demolition was scheduled for a month later, after Elena had a team pull out any last bits of her old life. There was barely anything she wanted. Victor's presence had poisoned every single piece of furniture. She kept her mom's gardening shears from the shed and one wedding photo of her parents she found in a box Victor never bothered to open. Everything else was sold, donated, or trashed. On demolition day, Elena stood across the street with Adrian and Mariah, watching the crew get ready. The house looked smaller now, like its power was gone. It was just a building, not the cage she remembered. Last chance to change your mind, Adrian said quietly. My mind is made. The foreman gave the signal, and boom, the first wall collapses, shaking Elena to her core. Then another, and another, until the whole damn thing implodes in a cloud of dust and chaos. Watching it go, you could see something inside her just settle. This wasn't healing, it was an ending. Victor's last symbol of power was officially toast. Maria asks how she feels. Her answer, like I can finally breathe. They bail before the cleanup crew even gets started. Elena's got a new life to run. Meetings, contracts, the works. 6 months later, she's standing in front of the whole company at the annual shareholder meeting. The room is packed. Board members, big money investors, even dock workers are here for the show. A year ago, this would have sent her running. Now, she's ice-cold calm. She talks recovery, new shipping routes, and a green future. She talks about her dad's legacy, but how they're building their own. She never says Victor's name once. He's just a ghost rotting in a cell. The applause she gets is 100% real. They're not looking at some rich girl playing boss anymore. They see a queen on her throne. Adrian's at the back of the room, giving her that look, a mix of pride, satisfaction, and like he owns a piece of this victory. Later, they're in his car. Elena ditched her own ride. Too many bad memories. Now, Adrian's her chauffeur when they're on the same route. Solid speech, he says, merging into traffic. Thanks, Maria wrote most of it. Yeah, but you sold it. That's all that matters. They drive in silence for a bit, then Adrian drops his voice. Hey, I need to tell you something. And just like that, Elena's walls go right back up. What now? Remember when you asked if I planned all this from day one? I remember you saying yes. Well, there's more to the story. Adrian keeps his eyes locked on the road. I wasn't just watching Victor, I was watching your whole family, especially your dad. A literal chill runs down Elena's spine. Why? 20 years back, your father snatched a massive contract from my dad's company. The loss destroyed us. My father died trying to get back on his feet. The man needed payback. Against my father. Against Moretti Shipping. Against the name that wiped out mine. Adrian's jaw is clenched tight. My whole plan was to wait for your father to be at his weakest, then crush him. But he died before I got the chance. That whole incident with your parents. Elena's heart just stops. What about the incident? Adrian finally looks at her, his eyes totally empty. It wasn't an incident, Elena. I had their car tampered with. I'm the reason they're gone. And the world just shatters. Elena can't breathe, can't think. Her brain just short circuits. Her parents, the crash that broke her world and left her wide open for a predator like Victor. Adrian, he orchestrated everything. Stop the car. Her own voice sounds like a stranger's. Elena, stop the damn car, now! He pulls over, and she practically falls out of the car. She takes maybe 3 steps before her legs give out and she hits the pavement. Her parents, her dad's laugh, her mom's hands in her garden, how they'd look at each other and the rest of the world would disappear. Gone. Not by some accident, but because Adrian Keller wanted his pound of flesh. She feels him standing behind her. I'm sorry, I know that doesn't. Don't! Her voice is raw, broken. Don't you dare say you're sorry. She spins on him, a year of steel-forged control vaporizing instantly. You killed them. You murdered my parents for a company, then you used me. You made me think you were my ally when you were just... I was your ally. Every single thing I did to protect you from Victor was real. Only because you wanted to be the one to destroy me, not him. Adrian actually flinches at that because he can't deny it. At first, yeah, that was the plan. But things changed. You changed them. I don't believe a single word that comes out of your mouth. Then believe this. He pulls an envelope out of his jacket and holds it out. I drew this up 3 months ago. I was waiting for the right time, but there is no right time. There's only the truth. Her hands are shaking as she rips it open. Inside is a legal document signing over his entire share of Moretti Shipping to her. A whopping 22% of the company handed back, no strings attached. I don't want your company, Adrian says, his voice low. I'm not looking for revenge anymore. I just want... He struggles with the words. I want you to be free, not tied to me, not trapped in another cage. Elena just stares at the paper, at his signature already notarized. Why tell me now? Why not just disappear? Because you deserved the whole truth. Every last piece. I've been lying since the day we met. I'm done with lies. You need to know who I am and what I did. After that, you decide what happens to us. What happens to us is I never see your face again. I get it. Adrian's voice is flat, but his eyes look like shattered glass. The transfer's already done. I'll resign from the board tomorrow. You'll never have to deal with me again. He starts to walk away. Elena's still on the curb, holding the papers that give her everything she fought for. Total control of her company, freedom from Adrian's schemes, power that was all hers. But the cost was knowing her savior was also the monster who started it all. She thinks of her dad, the fighter. Enzo Moretti never backed down from a fight. But he made enemies, probably crushed guys just like Adrian's dad to get to the top. There are no clean victories, no perfect heroes, just people making messed up choices and living with the consequences. Elena gets to her feet, feeling steadier. She looks right at Adrian, the man who engineered her parents' deaths and her own rise. I can't forgive you, she says, not for my parents. Probably not ever. I know. But I'm not giving up this company, and I'm not letting them die for nothing. Elena takes a hard breath. I'm going to build something they'd be proud of, something that helps people instead of wrecking them. And you're going to help me. Adrian's head snaps up. What? You owe me a debt that's impossible to repay. So you're gonna spend the rest of your life trying. You'll use your connections, your money, your talent for being a ruthless bastard, all of it, to help me make Moretti shipping a force for good. Elena, you don't want me around. I don't want you anywhere near my personal life. But I need your skills. And you need to pay for what you did, even if you never can. She holds his stare. That's the deal. Take it, or I'll make sure the entire world knows who you are. Your name, your company, everything you've built. I'll burn it all to the ground. Adrian just stares at her, then gives a slow, heavy nod. All right, I accept. And Adrian, if you ever lie to me again, if you try to control me or hurt anyone I care about, I won't just ruin you, I will end you. Crystal clear. It is. Elena gets back in the car and waits for him. The silence is heavy as they drive off. The entire game has changed, and she can't tell if she's a genius or completely insane. But it was her call, made with her eyes wide open. A year later, the foundation is launched. Elena's at a podium talking to a sea of reporters and suits about its new mission. Adrian is sitting in the front row, watching her. He funneled half his fortune into this thing without a single question. It's penance for a sin that can't be forgiven. They're colleagues, nothing more. It's obvious they never will be. Elena keeps him at arm's length, using his brutal efficiency while never forgetting his crimes. Some days she hates his guts. Other days, she sees the regret eating him alive. Most days, it's both. Maria's on stage with her, the new CFO, and the only person Elena trusts with her life. The Moretti sisters, building something new from the ashes. After the press conference, Elena finds a quiet spot and pulls out her phone. There's a notification from the prison. Victor tried to send her a letter. The warden's asking if she wants it. Elena deletes the notification without even thinking about it. She doesn't need his words, his excuses, his pathetic attempts to stay relevant. He's the past, locked away where he belongs. She is the future, not fixed, not healed, barely even okay sometimes, but free. Finally, 100% free. Elena Moretti steps out into the Boston night. Her company is hers, her mission is clear, and for the first time in what feels like forever, so is her life. She had learned to see the predators before they lunged, learned to command power without losing herself, and learned that survival sometimes means you make deals with devils and live with the consequences. The terrified, broken woman who once stood outside Victor's study wouldn't recognize the person she'd become. And that really was the entire point.
Elena Moretti's story is often introduced as a revenge thriller, but that description is too shallow for what the narrative is really doing. At its core, this is not simply a tale about a woman betrayed by her husband, it is a study of how power colonizes identity. Victor does not merely plan to kill Elena. He first dismantles the conditions that allow her to trust her own mind. He sedates her, falsifies her medical reality, engineers a fake pregnancy, and slowly transforms her from heir to spectator in her own life. His violence is not impulsive, it is architectural. He builds a world in which Elena's confusion becomes his greatest asset. This is why the discovery scene matters so much. Elena does not uncover a single lie, she uncovers the design behind all of them. When she overhears Victor discussing her death, the false pregnancy, and the transfer of her company, she is not just learning that she is in danger, she is witnessing the collapse of an entire emotional ecosystem. Every gesture of tenderness she once trusted is reclassified as strategic theater. Every act of care becomes suspicious in retrospect. The pills were not comfort, the doctor was not help, the marriage was not shelter, the child she imagined was not hope. Victor weaponized the symbols of love because symbols are often more powerful than force. A woman can resist a visible enemy. It is much harder to resist a lie that arrives dressed as rescue. What makes this story compelling is that Elena's transformation begins not with empowerment but with disillusionment. That distinction matters. Popular narratives often glamorize strength as if it appears in a flash, but Elena becomes powerful only after reality wounds her deeply enough to force clarity. There is a painful philosophical truth here. Sometimes the first step toward freedom is the destruction of comforting illusions. Elena cannot act decisively until she stops romanticizing the person who is destroying her. The moment she hears Victor's true voice, the emotional ambiguity vanishes. Fear remains, but confusion does not. That is an important life lesson embedded in the story. Confusion is often the soil in which control grows. Clarity may hurt, but it also reorganizes the will. Victor himself is fascinating because he embodies a familiar paradox of patriarchal power. He presents himself as a stabilizing male force entering the life of a young, grieving heiress who seems too overwhelmed to manage a shipping empire alone. He performs competence, order, and masculine reliability, yet beneath that performance lies something far less noble: entitlement. He believes Elena's inheritance should belong to the person most capable of controlling it, namely himself. In his worldview, power naturally transfers toward dominance. Elena's softness, grief, and trust are not qualities to be honored. They are weaknesses to be exploited. This is the language of toxic masculinity at its most polished. Not loud aggression, but managerial possession. The fake pregnancy becomes especially meaningful in that context. Pregnancy is one of the narrative's most violent symbols because it represents a future Elena believes she is nurturing, when in fact Victor is nurturing only her dependence. He does not merely deceive her biologically, he colonizes her imagination. He gives her a future to protect so that she becomes easier to manage in the present. There is something profoundly chilling in that. He understands that hope can restrain a person more effectively than fear. Elena becomes less confrontational because she thinks she is carrying new life. In that sense, Victor uses anticipated motherhood as a cage. Yet the story refuses to remain only about victimization. Once Elena escapes and aligns herself with Adrian Keller, the narrative opens a second thematic layer: the cycle of violence. Adrian is not a moral opposite to Victor. He is, in many ways, another expression of the same world. He is strategic, ambitious, wounded by old grievances, and willing to use Elena's crisis to advance his own goals. At first, he seems like the necessary counterforce, the rival who can topple the tyrant, but later revelations expose the deeper tragedy. Adrian also helped shape the conditions of Elena's suffering through his role in the death of her parents. This twist is not there merely for shock. It serves an intellectual purpose. It dismantles the fantasy that oppression can always be solved by finding the right powerful man. Sometimes both the destroyer and the rescuer belong to the same moral ecosystem. This is where Elena's arc becomes truly meaningful. Her growth is not measured by how effectively she destroys Victor, although she certainly does that. Her growth is measured by the fact that she eventually refuses to hand her future to Adrian as well. She studies the company, she goes to the docks, she learns the roots, the finances, the board structure, the weak points in the business, and the human cost of leadership. She does not simply reclaim ownership in a legal sense. She develops competence. This is one of the most mature lessons in the story. Real freedom is not symbolic, it is operational. A person is not liberated merely because the villain is exposed. Liberation becomes real when that person can sustain, defend, and direct her own life without outsourcing agency to another manipulator. The boardroom scene, then, is significant not only because it humiliates Victor. It matters because Elena speaks from a position of reassembled selfhood. She sits in her father's chair and names what was done to her with precision. She transforms private abuse into public evidence. She turns narrative against the man who used narrative to erase her. In a sense, she performs a reversal of interpretive authority. Victor spent years defining Elena for others: fragile, unstable, dependent. In the boardroom, Elena defines Victor instead: fraudulent, predatory, murderous. Whoever controls the story controls the field of legitimacy. Elena understands this by the time she takes the floor. The demolition of the house later in the story continues that symbolic logic. The house once represented domestic security, wealth, marriage, and status. But Elena has learned that places can become monuments to manipulation. Destroying the house is not an act of rage alone. It is an act of semiotic cleansing. She refuses to let architecture preserve the lie of home. This is an underappreciated life lesson. Healing sometimes requires more than forgiveness or endurance. Sometimes it demands the removal of structures that taught the body to confuse imprisonment with intimacy. By the end, Elena channels her suffering into the Moretti Family Foundation, which supports education, mental health, and legal aid. This final movement matters because it prevents the narrative from collapsing into mere vengeance. Elena does not only survive, she creates. She takes wealth stained by manipulation and loss and repurposes it toward public good. That is how she breaks the cycle. She does not become harmless, she becomes purposeful. She understands power now, but she refuses to reproduce it in the image of the men who shaped her suffering. That perhaps is the deepest lesson of the story. Betrayal can fracture identity, but it can also expose the hidden systems that identity once trusted. Elena does not go back to who she was before Victor. That person is gone, and the story is wise enough not to pretend otherwise. Instead, she becomes someone new, less innocent, more discerning, capable of grief without surrender and power without self-erasure. In the end, Elena's greatest triumph is not that the men around her fall, it is that their violence no longer defines the horizon of her becoming.